You are listening to the Rewards Canada podcast.
Hello, and welcome to episode 97 of the Rewards Canada podcast. This time around, we're going to discuss the new Air France KLM Flying Blue World Elite Mastercard. The card was soft launched on October 13th, with the official launch of the card to come shortly. It has definitely been met with mixed reviews across various forums and blogs. Overall, I'm kind of in the middle to a little bit on the middle to positive on this card, but that is looking at it in terms of where it fits in the Canadian market and who this card is being targeted to. I think when you look at this card, you have to look at who Air France and KLM want to have it, and you also have to look at its specific competition, which are the other airline cards in Canada. A lot of the comments online and in our blog comments and things like that are comparing this card to the Cobalt card. And most people, including us, say that the Cobalt is a better option overall for earning Flying Blue miles, and for the most part it is, but the same holds true for Aeroplan and British Airways. The Cobalt is better than the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card, and it's better than the RBC British Airways Visa Infinite card at earning Aeroplan points and Avios respectively. But all these co-brand cards have a specific place. If we look at the new Flying Blue card and its earn to burn ratio, it is for the most part actually better than its direct competition in the airline space. It is better than the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card. It is better than the WestJet RBC World Elite Mastercard. It is better than the Alaska Airlines World Elite Mastercard, and so on. The reason why is Air France and KLM's low economy class mileage requirements to fly transatlantic. We've provided a lot of coverage about this on Rewards Canada, but if you're unfamiliar with it, they have a set minimum redemption level for flights between Canada and Europe, and actually Turkey and North Africa, at 15,000 miles one way from Eastern Canada and 20,000 miles one way from Western Canada. That means you only need 30,000 to 40,000 Flying Blue miles for a round-trip flight. And sometimes that can be even less when Air France KLM Flying Blue runs their promo rewards. Those are their monthly discounted rewards. So we haven't seen Canada in there for probably a good 5-6 months, but they do show up. And then they get dropped even more, probably as low as 11,000, I think it's 11,250 miles, something like that. Don't quote me exactly, one way. So under 25,000 miles round trip from Eastern Canada. And the same thing for those type of flights on Aeroplan, you're looking at 60 to 70,000 miles round trip. So at least double in some cases there. I mean, British Airways, they themselves have some low rates to England and Ireland, the famous option between Toronto and Dublin that can be had for as little as 26,000 Avios round trip with some manageable taxes and fees. Technically, you can even redeem 26,000 Avios round trip flights between Toronto and London, but the fees get crazy there, so it's kind of a no-go on the economy class tickets. You're just better, most cases, you're better off just buying an economy class ticket between Toronto and London on British Airways. So that's, when you start comparing these things, that's where the Air France KLM card kind of starts to shine. If we take the base spending on an Aeroplan card at one Aeroplan point, you're looking to $60,000 to $70,000 to get a round-trip flight to Europe with the Aeroplan program. With the Air France KLM card, with the base spending, you get the same reward for $30,000 to $40,000 spending. And I think that's where Air France and KLM are trying to come in with this card. They have their 1 times, 2 times, and 5 times earn rates compared to some of the Aeroplan cards, which are 1, 1.5, getting up to 3 points per dollar. So this one does exceed that. And then add in the up to 30 miles per dollar at select merchant partners of Brim, which I don't think I've mentioned in this podcast yet. Brim is the one that's issuing this card that Air France KLM have partnered with. It's actually called the Air France KLM Flying Blue World Elite Mastercard powered by Brim. And Brim, if you're familiar with them, their own proprietary card, you can earn additional miles at select partners that merchants that they've partnered with, and they're extending that to the Air France KLM cards as well. So you get up to 30 miles there. And then you get 5 miles per dollar on flights that are booked with Air France and KLM. Compare this to the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite's 1.5 on Air Canada flights, WestJet only giving 2% on their flights, or RBC British Airways giving 2 Avios on the British Airways card. And you can quickly see that this card really does compete in the earn and burn arena. Here you have a card where you can spend $6,000 on flights with Air France, KLM, either or, and have a round-trip flight to Europe in rewards. If you spend $6,000 on Air Canada flights with the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card, which is the direct competitors card, you would only have enough points roughly for a one-way flight between Toronto and Montreal. Maybe have a little bit of points left over, but yeah. So you're comparing a one-way flight between Toronto and Montreal on one credit card to a round-trip flight to Europe. So I think you can see where I'm getting at here as to where the strength with the Air France KLM card lies. For business class flights, the gap closes quite a bit. With flights on Air France KLM, they start at 70,000 points, which is the same as Aeroplan. That's one-way flight between Canada and Europe, 70,000 each way. So you're looking 140,000 round trip. Here it really depends on each individual spending habits to see which card would come out ahead. But again, if you're someone who's buying lots of transatlantic flights, the Air France KLM earn rate cannot be beat, as it will get you a business class reward much faster than any other card in Canada. That 5 Air France KLM Flying Blue miles per dollar spent on their flights is a real big incentive if you're flying transatlantic and are not wanting to just pick one airline. If you're good flying Air France KLM, versus Air Canada, then check out this card, because if you're buying lots of those flights, you're going to be rewarded a lot faster. So that's where this card really fits in. But what is disappointing on the card is the lack of additional benefits for actually traveling with Air France KLM. No first check bag free, no discounts for buying cash tickets, no priority check-in, no priority boarding, no companion vouchers. Those are a flurry of benefits that all the direct competition offer in one form or another. I mean, the card does have the annual benefit of 30 XP, which is their elite status qualifying points, which will help some of the semi to more frequent Air France KLM Flying Blue members retain status or get to the next status level up. The card does also have Mastercard Travel Pass by Dragon Pass, which covers your annual membership fee to access lounges, but you still have to pay the entry fee into the lounges. There's no free passes, and more surprisingly, no free access to the Air France KLM lounges in Toronto or Montreal. That really surprised us. We thought that at the very least they would offer that on this card. Granted, having Mastercard Travel Pass on this card is more than you get with the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card or the RBC British Airways Visa Infinite card. The only other premium airline cards offering lounge membership are the WestJet World Elite Mastercard and MBNA Alaska Airlines World Elite Mastercard, because again, they're World Elite Mastercards, so they get the Mastercard Travel Pass just like this Air France KLM card. There also seems to be a lot of disappointment that the card does not come with no foreign transaction fees like other Brim cards. Again, you have to look at who this card is competing against. There are no Aeroplan cards with no FX fees, and actually there's not one airline credit card in Canada that comes with no FX fees. In all honesty, these cards don't need to offer it to compete. They're in a different space altogether. Could Air France and KLM and Brim have offered it to differentiate from their competition? Sure, they could have. But why when those competitors don't do it? Plus, I would say the primary target market for these cards are less interested in no FX fees on their cards. Just like the other primary non-gamer markets for Aeroplan, Alaska Airlines, WestJet, and other airline cards in the market, people are not getting them for no FX fees. In general, it is a market that is less price sensitive in terms of saving that 2.5% on foreign transactions. You can also tell the card offerings have been created on this card to avoid gamification. Hence the welcome bonus of only having XP. Because I mean, the welcome bonus is an additional 30 XP above that 30 that you get every year. So they're targeting Air France KLM flyers who want to retain status or get to the next status level. Excuse me. Air France KLM and Brim look like they don't want gamers grabbing this card with a large sign-up bonus, using those miles for one flight, and then canceling the card and going back to Air Canada or some other airline. It's pretty obvious where they came in with that. That being said, until December 15th, you can get the first year free on this card. So it is open for anyone to give it a try, and the only cost to you is a small short-term hit on your credit rating, just a few points because you're applying for this new card. It is, I have to think about it more. It is strictly a card in terms of the welcome bonus to get that XP, to get the elite status faster. But it is a card people who aren't looking for status will be getting for the earn and burn rates. But it also serves as an insurance policy for keeping Flying Blue miles from expiring. I mean, it's not necessary for someone who flies frequently enough with Air France KLM, but for someone who doesn't and happens to say transfer points from American Express for Flying Blue for an award, but ends up not using those miles, or they have to cancel that award flight, you can't convert those back to American Express. And if plans don't work out to use them within 24 months, you would lose those miles. So by having this card, you can save those miles and the big investment behind them. I can speak to this kind of to a personal experience. My parents used to travel once every year or 2 years to Europe from Calgary and always flew on KLM. They would earn the miles, but it was slow as it wasn't very frequent. But now with my parents aging and medical issues arising, they couldn't travel to fit in a flight to keep their miles from expiring, and they lost them. They were getting right to a point where they would have had enough for a business class redemption after one more round trip, but life stood in the way. Had this card been around at that time, investing $132 to keep those miles alive would have been well worth it. So for some of you, you can consider this card as an insurance policy for your Flying Blue miles. So to conclude this podcast, I'll stand by my middle positive ground thoughts on this card, which is something higher than what I've seen most other people say about it. No doubt, the benefits could be better to make flying with Air France KLM more attractive, but when looking at the earn to burn requirements and what the direct competition offers, this card is definitely right up there with them. So don't, take some of what some people are saying with a grain of salt. Check out what you require and how you spend on your card and how you want to be rewarded, what rewards look good to you. And, give all these cards a consideration because, if you're looking at an airline card, this card is very competitive. And that's all she wrote for this episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Rewards Canada podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. And be sure to help spread the word so that we can keep bringing you the best loyalty rewards content in Canada. Share the podcast, hit the like button, leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform, and so on. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. The Rewards Canada podcast is produced in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, with music produced by Regina's own TWKOP.